1400 BC. Jesus has known him that whole time, and he's been working with him that whole time, even most explicitly for the last 80 years of Moses' life, where Jesus was really working on him. And at the end of Moses' life, at the end of Deuteronomy, we are told that there has never been a prophet in the entire Bible who had as close of a relationship with God as Moses did. Moses, it said, saw God and spoke to him face to face. I have no idea what that means. But Jesus is the face of God, we're told in Colossians. He is the image of the invisible God. And so Jesus and Moses have had this intimate, face-to-face kind of relationship for 1,400 years. And then Elijah, well, he's only been around for 900 years at this point in time. So, he's the newcomer on the scene. Moses has 500 years on Elijah. But still, Elijah's a good guy. And he was the number one of all the ancient prophets other than Moses. So Jesus has been with these guys a long time. Maybe Jesus is just kind of saying, hey, I need my buds, Dad. I need to have some bro time. Can you just send them, give them a day off, send them here. I need some time with them. I don't know what happened between Jesus and the Father to make this event take place, but we can see what happened. We can see what led up to it, and we can see the kind of change it made in Jesus' life following it. You tracking with me on this? Brotherhood comes from a long history, and that gives the power to walk through difficult times. But also the second thing is it comes from shared, often intense experiences. Jesus had some really intense experiences with Moses. That dude went through a river, a sea, on dry land. Jesus led him through the Red Sea on dry land. They did this whole plagues thing. They did the whole Passover thing. Moses had to lead these ruthless people for years and years wandering in the desert. And the whole time, except for one or two problems, Moses was faithful. They've been through some stuff together. And Elijah, the same thing. Just a couple weeks ago, we learned about Elijah on Mount Carmel. And that whole event where he and the prophets of Baal are just kind of at war with each other, spiritually speaking, and God sends fire down from heaven. Jesus has been through it with Elijah too. There's another aspect of brotherhood I'd like to talk about, and it's this third one. Brotherhood welcomes different perspectives. I think this is cool. Okay, go with me on this one. And again, on all of these things, I'm just kind of musing along with the relationship Jesus must have had with Moses and Elijah. It doesn't really give us any explicit examples in the Bible of why those two guys in particular are there, but there's a possibility that this might be the case. Check it out. Moses died. Elijah didn't. Elijah was whisked into heaven by a whirlwind. Okay? So Moses he died on a mountain. He died on a mountain, and God, it says in the end of Deuteronomy, God himself buried Moses. That's a shared experience. But God buried Moses, but Elijah was just whisked into heaven on fiery chariots. That would have been cool to see. More fire. I love this. You know what I'm talking about? So anyway, Elijah was whisked into heaven. So check this out. Jesus is going to do both. He's going to die, and after he comes back to life, he's going to be hanging out with his disciples for a few days, few weeks, and then he's going to be whisked into heaven. That's what happens at the end of Matthew 28. Jesus just ascends right on into heaven. There aren't any chariots of fire or anything like that, but he goes into heaven. So check this out. Here's Moses and Elijah, and Jesus is like, okay, tell me what that part was like. And then Elijah, tell me what that part is like. After all, they're talking about his departure, right? It says they're talking about his departure. So I don't exactly know what that conversation is all about, and Peter didn't know either because he was out of his mind. And John and James, I guess, were sleepy or whatever, and they didn't ever write out all the details of this whole conversation because they were kind of sleepy anyway. But I'm amazed at this thing, that you can see these two different perspectives in what Jesus actually really needs right here at this moment. Sometimes you're going to have a brotherhood relationship, and that other person has just a totally different way of viewing the world than you do. But that's what makes the relationship better. Two more. Brotherhood overcomes stupid mistakes. Both Elijah and Moses have made stupid mistakes in their lives. But the stupidest of this scene is Peter. When Peter steps up and he says, Jesus, let's make some shelters. Those aren't shelters. The Greek word behind that sometimes can mean shelter, but it also could mean tabernacle or shrine. Jesus, let's make some shrines here so that every second Thursday we can come back up here onto this mountain and remember the moment that you got all shiny. And we can have these shrines here, and Moses and Elijah can come back, and they can be here and have a nice little place to sit while you guys have your powwow. I don't know what's going through Peter's mind. He doesn't know what's going through Peter's mind. No one knows what's going through Peter's mind. The Bible tells us literally he didn't know what he was saying. It was a stupid mistake. Whatever he said, whatever he blurted out, whatever reason he wanted to, it just wasn't smart. But I love this. Jesus doesn't kick him. He doesn't say anything mean to him. Instead, the Father in heaven sends a really dark cloud and a booming voice that says, this is my son, pay attention to him. Peter, I'm not disqualifying you. I'm just pointing you back in the right direction. Pay attention to him. True brotherhood overcomes even stupid mistakes. And one last piece. True brotherhood centers on the will of the Father and the word of the Son. That's the message of the Father. He says to Peter, this is my son. Listen to him. Now, I'm going through all that stuff as kind of a analogy play off of what I see going on in this passage. I think this passage is primarily showing us that Jesus needs brotherhood. This is one of a couple moments in Jesus' life where he needs brothers around him. And the bottom line is that if he needs brothers, if he needs to have these kind of relationships around him, of people who can take him to and through the difficult times, how much more do we need it? And so I just want to ask you to kind of, for your take home today, I just want to kind of ask you a couple of these questions. Number one, who is your brother? Who is your team of brothers or your team of sisters? Who is that for you? Do you have one? And now I'm going to show you the thing I stayed up extra late last night working on, because if you don't have one, you need to get one. And all I could think about last night was this video clip.
You're my favorite deputy.
You got a friend in me. You got a friend in me.
Come on, let's wrangle up the cattle.
When the road looks rough ahead and you're miles and miles from your nice warm bed,
Round 'em up, cowboy.
just remember what your old pal